Hello, listeners. If you've enjoyed these narrations, please click on that like and subscribe button. A while back, I came across some online communities for lucid dreaming. For those who don't know, lucid dreaming is the act of becoming self-aware in your dreams, and even being able to manipulate them. You can go wherever you want to, summon whatever object you like, interact with whomever you want to, etc. It took me 2 weeks of practice and dream journaling, but I still remember the first time that I succeeded. I ended up flying around my hometown of downtown Salt Lake City, kissing an old girlfriend and driving a Bugatti Veyron down the Autobahn. I didn't lucid dream again until about a week later. Now that time I was more adventurous, meeting up with characters from my favorite Walter Moore's book, meeting with some of female celebrities that I won't name, and then flying a bus into the sun because I wanted to see what would happen. And the sun exploded. As time went by, my lucid dreams became more frequent and I became almost perfectly capable of controlling them. Monster trucks, alien worlds, movie stars, famous characters, whatever I could imagine. It sounds pretty awesome, right? Well, after the 50 or 60th time, I made a disheartening discovery. Lucid dreaming was becoming an empty experience. The novelty had worn off, only to reveal that the more I knew I was in a dream, the less fun everything became. I knew that whatever I did or saw wasn't real, so any gravity or excitement I might have felt disappeared. The beautiful women were just shells without souls. The landscapes were like paintings that, while striking, were only shades of the things they represented. Lucid dreams became like trying to take a bite out of a raspberry sherbet, only to realize that you were eating unflavored cream, bland and unfulfilling. Unsatisfied with the lucid dreamings, I started to research everything about dreams from any source available. Science, pseudoscience, paranormal theories, world religions, you name it. One evening, as I was reading something from Dr. Stefan Laberg, I was struck by a thought. What if lucid dreaming wasn't the limits of dreams? Maybe I could go deeper. To what, though? I can only guess. Nobody online seems to have any answers to that. And since I couldn't think of anything else to do, I just started meditating every day. Ironically, my dreams became more uncontrollable. I retained my awareness, but I would will certain things to happen and they wouldn't, or things and creatures I hadn't thought of would appear, and when I tried to will them away, they wouldn't leave. Still, I kept going. One night as I was dreaming of walking the crowded streets of Chicago, I had an idea. Perhaps I could meditate in my dream. I'd only ever done it while I was awake, so I decided to sit down on the sidewalk of crowded people who didn't actually exist. I closed my eyes, concentrating on my breathing, and tried emptying my thoughts. Suddenly, my body started to feel heavier and heavier. Though I still stayed the same size, I started to feel like I was weighing twice as much, and then 4 times, then 8. Soon, I felt as heavy as a truck. It became unbearable. I couldn't move any of my frame under the weight, and I realized that I couldn't breathe. I started to panic. I opened my eyes, grasping for air, and tried to move, and then I woke up. Whatever that had been, it felt 100 times more real than any lucid dream I'd had before. So I decided to keep pushing. And for months, whenever I could find myself inside of a lucid dream, I would immediately sit down and begin to meditate. I could go longer and longer each time, my body feeling heavier and heavier, but it would eventually become so unbearable that I would wake up. Why did I feel heavier? What was it that I was getting into? I could really only guess, but I persisted. Until last night. I was dreaming of hiking the Sandia Mountains of New Mexico, like several times before. I sat and I started meditating. My body became heavier, but I could take it. I became even heavier. I could still take it. Soon I was weighing as much as a truck, as a tractor, as a whale, as a skyscraper. I'd never gone this far. Suddenly I started to feel a pulling sensation, like my entire body was being tugged at from all directions. This was new. My stomach sank as fear started to crawl through my chest. I wanted to move, to make it to stop, but my arms now weighed as much as cities. I couldn't breathe anymore. The pulling started to tear me apart from the inside. I started to black out, and I was standing in a vast gray field. The grass below my feet was dead. It crunched as I stepped around. Above me was an infinite black sky, swirling with wispy, blood-red clouds. I could see shining galaxies and dimming, twinkling stars. Whether it was night or whether I stood in a plane that gazed directly into the cosmos, I couldn't tell. Suddenly I heard a scream in the distance. I turned, and it took me a moment to register what I saw. There were thousands of heads stretching all the way to the horizon, all sticking out of the ground, and from the top of each head, a glowing, ethereal-looking thread sprouted and stretched upwards. I craned my head up and saw that the thread stretched all the way into space until they disappeared from view, and every once in a while a head screamed, and it made my blood run cold. As I made my way to the heads, I saw that they were still connected to their respective owners. Millions of people were buried up to their necks, their eyes closed and heads lolling in slumber. Some looked peaceful, most did not. As I watched them, I realized that I didn't feel the same emptiness from them I felt in the shells of people I created in my dreams. There was a gravity to them. My discovery was soon interrupted, however, by the sound of a grunt. I turned about 50 feet out, and there was a man walking amongst the sleeping people. As I got closer, I saw he wore an old-fashioned suit, and he was holding a pair of giant scissors, like the kind used for cutting ribbons at store openings. He shuffled among the forests of heads, apparently considering each one carefully. For a horrible moment, I thought he was going to start cutting off heads, but I soon saw that he was actually inspecting the threads above them. I watched as he approached an elderly woman. Her face was perturbed. The man then reached out with his scissors, and with a snip, he severed the thread above her head. The severed thread faded away, and after a moment, the woman's face relaxed. As I watched the thread slowly return, though, it seemed weaker, more faded than before. The man stood there for a moment, considering his work, and then he turned to look at me. "You should not be here," said the man. I would describe what his face looked like, only I can't. The best I could say is this: it was like his face wouldn't stop moving, shifting and changing. First he had 2 brown eyes, and then he had 4 eyes that each looked like seashells. One moment his nose was large and in the center of his face, the next it was small and shifted to the lower right cheek and looked vaguely like a train. It was like watching a motion blur Picasso painting that couldn't decide what it wanted to be. "What's the matter, boy? You a mute?" said the man gruffly. "Speak up." He came closer, and at first I thought he was going to try and shove me into the ground with the rest of the people, but he merely kept inspecting the sleepers. A few yards from us, an old man screamed. "Why, I had to gather my thoughts. Why does your face, My face is fine," the man huffed. "Not my fault your mind can't make sense of it." I was a bit taken aback by the man's rudeness, but I asked him his name. "Morpheus, the Sandman, the Dream Catcher, your pick." He shrugged. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I'm saving us all." "Saving us?" "Yup." "Saving us from what?" "Them," he said and pointed up into the dark sky. I gazed above me, and all I saw were the red clouds in front of the endless black abyss of space. The man continued his walk, checking out thread after thread. Rather than being left behind on this alien place, I followed him. From somewhere in the distance came a scream of a woman. "I didn't see anybody up there," I said as I caught up. "And they don't see you. Let's keep it that way," he said. "Really? Why?" "I know a lot of people say you don't want to know," he said as he continued walking. "But believe me, you do not want to know." "Just humor me," I insisted, and he sighed. "I'll spare you some of the details. I have seen what they do to other life forms, and it's not pretty. Suffice to say, they wouldn't like the idea of us sharing the same space they do." "What, like we're trespassing on their property?" I asked, and the man began eyeing a particularly thick thread above a young woman's head. "No, more like we're ants in their kitchen," he said, and then he readied the scissors, and with a swift motion he closed the scissors around the young woman's thread. The thread, however, resisted. He gave it another try, but the thread remained uncut. "Maybe you need a new pair of scissors," I offered. "Scissors? Is that what your brain is interpreting?" "It's not too far off, metaphorically." "Then what are you actually—" "Shush." The man took a deep breath as he readied the scissors around the young woman's thread again. I looked at her face. Her black hair was braided, and her ebony skin and features reminded me of a picture of sub-Saharan women. Her face, however, was screwed in discomfort, her eyes scrunched tightly shut, and with a mighty grunt and a heave, the man tried the scissors again. This time the thread gave. It faded as the young woman's face relaxed, but returned sooner than the old woman's had. "I'm hoping that's enough to stop this one," he said, wiping his brow. "But a stubborn enough mind can overcome any barriers the brain puts up against it for its own good. You have been a headache and a half this last while, but let me tell you, I bet you anything this young lady is the next one to come bother me." "Are you erasing people's dreams?" I asked. "Smart lad," he said. "Most people erase their own dreams, the ones that need erasing, but I'm helping the stubborn ones along." "And your erasing dreams is saving us all?" "You got it." I thought he might add to that, but he just continued to wander through the fields of heads, and I kept following. "And how exactly does this all work?" "Well, since you have to ask," he said, squatting to inspect a man's head, "most of your dreams and nightmares are leftovers of your brain working while you sleep. But not all dreams. Some," and he pointed to the sky, "reach out to them, getting horrible glimpses of what's out there. Oh, you can't comprehend what you're seeing and feeling, of course, like a termite doesn't understand a volcanic eruption, but you know it's bad. Your brain can't handle it, and so it erases your memories of the dream when you wake up, and you're able to continue with your day instead of crawling into a corner and going insane." I didn't know what to say. All I could do was stand there. "Let me tell you, boy, you've also done your fair share of hollering." "I don't remember having any sorts of dreams like what you're mentioning," I said. "Exactly." Evidently satisfied, the man left the thread above the man's head alone. "Problem is," and he wiped his brow, "if too many of those overreaching dreams get unchecked, especially the dreams of persisting fools like yourself, it could alert them, and we don't want that." "You've got to tell me," I persisted. "Who are they?" Suddenly there was a rumble from the sky. The man and I looked up in the infinite sky, and one of what I assumed were galaxies began to mutate. It began to turn different colors as the cosmic tendrils started to emerge from it, stretching out heaven knows how many hundreds of light years. The rumbling was soon replaced with a roar, an eldritch cry, deafening in the vacuum of space, like the pits of 1,000 dying stars. All of the people on the ground began screaming. Still, the cosmic tendrils grew larger in the sky. I could hear screams from miles and miles, from thousands of people, all with their eyes tightening close. My word, the screams. If you've never heard a crowd of people screaming, I can promise you there is nothing like it. It will never leave you. "I thought about them too much. I shouldn't have thought so much," the man muttered to himself, and for the first time, I detected a hint of fear in his voice. "Kid, start thinking about anything else, movies or women, whatever." I sure tried. The man began to take measured breaths. We stood there for a few minutes, but soon the roaring died off. The screams of the people on the ground became lesser and lesser, and soon that galaxy resorted itself back to its previous appearance. The man breathed a sigh of relief. "That was a big one," said the man. "Plenty of people won't be remembering their dreams tonight." And after glancing over at the sky one more time, he resumed his seemingly endless task. For several minutes I followed him in silence. I considered everything that I had seen and mulled it over, and finally, with much deliberation, I told him, "I want you to tell me everything. I want to learn it all." Even if I couldn't distinguish his features, I knew that he was looking at me like I was an idiot. "After that, you still want to know more?" he said incredulously. "I'm not going to tell you anymore, because I promise you, you'll be happier not having the knowledge." "Why not?" I insisted. "How do you think I got stuck here, wise guy?" He breathed scafely through his teeth. "If you want to be trapped here with me for eternity, fine, I'll tell you everything. Only really you don't seem to be that great of company. So is this what you want? To be trapped here until the universe falls in on itself, or until we're all devoured?" I allowed that it wasn't. "Well," I continued, "is there anything more you could safely tell me?" "If it'll get you to shut up," he sighed wearingly. "I've got something I could show you. Don't know if you'll remember it when you wake up, though. That's a decision you'll have to make for yourself in a bit. You're probably too far in for your subconscious to do that for you." "Oh, I'll remember it. I've already made that decision," I assured him, and the man chuckled. "Don't make promises you're not sure you can keep, boy." The man put down his scissors and he brought his hands up next to his ears, and slowly he began to peel his face away. I woke up in a cold sweat and my sheets were soaked in what I hoped was just my own perspiration. I looked at my phone. It was 4 a.m. For hours I'd laid there, but there was no way that I could go back to sleep with the way that my mind was racing. So I pulled up my laptop and I wrote this. I've racked my brain, I've meditated, I've done everything I can to think of, but no matter what, I just can't seem to remember what I saw when the man peeled away his face.